Hi, for this week we were supposed to read the Woolsey chapter 4 and chapter 9, I think. And although it's literally just those chapters, there's a lot of information just kind of thrown and it's a little overwhelming. So I feel like the best way that I'm going to comprehend this chapter is by applying it to things that I am well knowledged in, and how would I want that vocabulary to be taught to somebody else. I feel like that's the way that I'm gonna understand this chapter the best. I want to give a blanket statement of how much I loved this chapter. I loved reading about it, and specifically what they brought in the introduction. Going back to what we learned, I think it was like the first week of this class, of these students are, imagine a high school student. They go through 6 different, classes a day. And each one of those is their own subculture. And so one of the quotes from the Woolsey is, words comprise their listening, speaking, reading, and writing vocabularies. Teachers are intent on ensuring that the language of each discipline is learned because they know that the right words matters. AKA, when you are in a specific discipline, you need to learn that specific discipline's vocabulary to be successful. And it's important to note that these students are literally going through 6, possibly 6 of those in one day. And so we as educators need to value that and make sure we're making vocabulary a priority. So my first kind of example is where the Woolsey article goes into thinking aloud with academic vocabulary. And in this section, you see this girl in a 9th grade math class asking her instructor, "I'm not sure I understand Cartesian coordinates." And the instructor responds with, number lines, right? Well, Cartesian coordinates are just 2 number lines that intersect or cross each other. When I see the term in our math text, I think, okay, the x-axis or line, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. The textbook makes sure to note how often the teacher used the word I, and this is what they have to say about it. This is a critical aspect of thinking aloud because you are not merely explaining, you are also inviting students to observe and listen to your cognitive processing. I felt very validated reading this because I'm actually a high school percussion instructor, and this is probably my number 1 teaching strategy that I use, is kind of over explaining what their thought process should be. I don't think it's fair to just explain something to a kid and then be like, yeah, take it and run. I do this a lot with when they learn scales. So when you learn scales, you learn just the C scale, which is all the natural notes, and slowly you add 1 sharp or 1 flat. And then the next scale, you add 2 sharps or 2 flats. And there's a very specific way that you can think about these very strategically. I won't get into it because it's a little bit boring just to explain. But I will literally say to the kids, okay, if I told you to add the 7th, if I told you to add the next 7th, what will that note be? And slowly I'll take them through that process, and I will literally go through the steps of what they should be thinking to get to the next scale. So, feel pretty proud of myself. I got to the word wall section, and as a future math teacher, I loved this entire section because I feel like so much of math grows on itself, and this word wall can bring in words that are simple, super, super simple math words that maybe they've never understood the concept of, or brand new words. And I specifically love students need these opportunities to become conservant with the words. The idea that just being able to see a word and go, oh, I know what that means, is not enough. They need to be able to use it in context, and these word walls are able to give these kids the chance to use these in conversation, see them every day. I feel like with math especially, I feel like I'm dealing with this in college. I can look at a problem and not even understand what it's asking me, because I feel like there's a level of math that you really need to, it's not just vocab words. You need to be able to evaluate a problem and then apply vocab words. I feel like this is just an amazing way to get math through kids' brains constantly. So I am a huge, huge Hunger Games nerd. I am currently rereading all of them, but I just got done reading the newest one. I take it very seriously, as you can see by my tabs, and without spoilers. This book is all about the idea of implicit submission and how, in David Hume's words, that there's an ease in which the many are governed by the few. And I feel like because that is such an important topic, and let me see if I can find the page, literally the first page, There are 4 quotes that she includes that are all about that idea right off the bat. I feel like that's a vocabulary word that needs to be explained before you jump into this book and start teaching it. And so in the Woolsey textbook, there's a section on purposeful instruction with individual terms. In this section, one of the teachers acknowledges that in his astronomy class, a lot of students have a hard time with words as like acceleration, deceleration, orbital physics. I'm just going to read directly from it. Fortunately, the teacher knew his students needed to hear, speak, read, and write these terms often. Before reading the article, he pointed out the key terms that he believed would be critical words. Because he understood the power of visuals, he drew brief, pre-planned diagrams of each on the board. Long story short, I think to understand the foreshadowing that happens in this book and really understand the concept of implicit submission, that's one of the words that has to be taught before you teach a book like that. It needs to be understood, and like the kids need time to like sleep on that idea before just jumping into this book. All right, that's it for this assignment. I know it was a little bit all over the place, but I learned a lot about the different ways that we can really help these students understand the vocab of a specific discipline. What I'm taking away from it is that there's really no wrong way to do it if you're just doing your best to constantly be getting these words that you choose as important and valuable for students in their brain. Any way you can just keep repeating these words is going to be the best for these kids, because again, they're experiencing 6 different like subcultures a day. Like, of course you need to think of creative ways to get these words to stick in their brains. And that's really it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you for the next Read and React.